the scars remind me to appreciate the days I don't have to.
You fly yourself over here, put yourself up in a hotel, come do my you'd be the first person on the podcast, and then forget about the $900 that you owe me.
That was a loss for you. That's a net loss for you on that.
Well,
no, you of all people, like everyone's doing a podcast, like you said.
Yes.
But you are someone that should do a podcast. I don't think everyone should, because you're so open and you've lived such a rich life.
Yeah.
That you have interesting friends and you are interesting, and so it's an easy conversation, and I think it's an interesting conversation. And you also have very strong points of view on things, which is another great thing to have for these.
Yeah.
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 Because not everyone should have a platform.
And I have had people on the show. I didn't realize it, but I counted, Kaylin, how many we've done. We've done 15.
It's badass.
Released or that we've recorded?
No, that we've recorded.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
That's still pretty low in the grand scheme of it.
No, I know. And I kind of describe this situation at, Leo, as being, if I'm taking a flight overseas, not only have we not got on the airplane yet, we're still fueling the plane.
Yeah.
So
it's a nurturing process.
Yeah.
And it changes too, right?
But I've had people on that I've worked with before and known for a long time and didn't know a lot about what they were, their opinions about me. Like when I came in to replace a guy in Aliens, I replaced James Remar in Aliens, and so
did he already start? And
he started. He shot for 2 weeks, Leo, and he was a drug addict, and he got caught. He got fired, and I was home on a Thursday, and I got called, and
if you got fired in the 80s with drugs on set, it had to be bad, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's the fucking 80s.
First of all, he didn't get caught on set.
Oh, okay. Even worse.
Yeah, he got caught in his hotel room, so the police were involved immediately.
There you go.
And according to according to Jim and Gail, he kind of had to go. The police, they wanted him out. I think he felt like Jim and Gail didn't really stand up for him. I don't think they were incredibly happy with the way that he was playing the role.
I was going to say it was probably a combination of the two, and they said this is a way we can.
Yeah.
Boy, that is. Have you ever been fired?
I've never been fired.
I haven't either, and I've worked with plenty of people, and like that's fucking heartbreaking, man. To go in, do a couple days. We do a sitcom. You have someone come in for a table read, and then the next day they're gone, and you're like, ooh.
Yeah, luckily enough, have never been fired, but
I'm too fearful.
What?
I'm too fearful. It's always there's so much fear involved for me that like I make sure that I can't walk in and not be prepared, and I figure by the time that I get there, I've been vetted enough to where people would,
Yeah, and getting fired, he got fired because he was, it wasn't marijuana either. It was he was shooting smack, and he was. I think he went over to dinner at Jim and Gail's once and nodded out and stuff. So I think there was a lot going on, and we've actually talked about him on this show. But when you say like you're scared, you're frightened, like from a work standpoint.
I think in my life, fear is driven a lot. Early on, especially as an actor, I'll speak like just in my experience talking to a lot of actors, there's like this fear of not being good enough or fear of not, getting into it at an early age. It was all about like the other person telling me I was doing a good job at a very small age. And at some point it changed and I was like, wait a second, that's not at all what this is. It was a driving factor, but this is not what I want this art form to be about for me. It's not about what they think of me. It's what I'm bringing to the table and what I'm presenting, like what my view of this thing is. So I fear drives that like perfectionism that I've had for sure. And I would not show up unless I was 100% prepared because I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
You know? So I would say there's always a little fear underneath, and I'm still fearful. It's a healthy fear. I like that fear. It's that kind of buzz, but like first time walking on any new set, there's always that carbonation, percolation kind of thing going on.
Yes.
So fear, whatever you call it, you know, excitement. I always, you know, because I was a child actor, my mom always told me, oh, it's not fear. You're talking about excitement. Like, and I was like, I don't know. This feels pretty shitty, man.
It feels pretty scary to me, Mom,
Thanks,
but
Mom.
might be exciting for you. But well, that was a nice way of, well, let me talk to you first before we get into your acting, which you have an extensive career for a young man. You know, I have to talk to you about martial arts. And I met you, of course, 2 years ago. We did a show together that's now you can see download. It's called Lockdown.
The Lockdown.
The Lockdown. And it's a martial arts movie with a little bit of drama in it. You know, when I started like researching you a little bit for this, Leo, how does a 3-year-old say to himself, I like these martial arts, man. I like kicking, I want to go learn karate or martial arts or whatever the case. How does that happen? I don't know if I was even talking at 3.
Yeah, man.
So
probably anger. A lot of anger built up, probably, I'm guessing. I think I was 4. And in the house, there must have been, old martial arts movies like Bruce Lee movies and whatnot.
Okay.
So I was around that. And I had a cousin that had started martial arts, and he was older than me. He was probably 8. And I really looked up to him. And so I think my initial interest in martial arts was probably looking at that older kid going like, I want to do that. That's cool. And I started the class, and it was, it was kind of a joke. It was like, Sensei Steve was the instructor. And it was like half martial arts and half like, well, if someone comes to the door, there's a password, and the password is Snow White. Don't let any strangers in the house. It was that kind of like martial arts class. Okay. But I just liked it, man. I don't know why I liked it, but I do distinctly remember like loving going to martial arts class. And then it just became one of those things that I just did my whole childhood. And I'm, that kind of segued into like my career now, which is a strange thing to sort of look back, and it started at 4. But I still practice martial arts. I love it. I've shifted into like different styles and whatnot. And I wouldn't say I'm like a martial arts. There's definitely martial arts, martial arts aholics out there. I'm just specific to the things that I like,
Well, I understand. I was under the impression that you basically started at 4. 4. And when you started, were you doing that kind of like 3 times a week at a local, sort of something or whatever? And did you feel like, or did your parents feel like you excelled right away, or they just knew that you enjoyed it a lot?
I did. I excelled at it.
Would you like to come home and practice and like watch, like try to.
Yeah, I was all about like performing. That was my favorite thing. So, the school, we do like these seminars or like at a tournament. And so like, I was just an attention whore. Like I just liked attention. Yeah. I think, I look back and it's the best, man. I can't get enough. That's my drug of choice, bro. Spike me up. I look back and I was like, did I like martial arts or did I just like the attention that I got from it? Probably a little bit of both, but I definitely excelled at the martial arts. The performing was just, I loved it. And so that drew me in. And, I was a part of a school where we go to a bunch of competitions and stuff. And as I did this sort of showmanship aspect of it, it sort of grew and grew and grew. And I was just doing all the local tournaments. I mean, my parents, I talked to them recently and they're like, we were at a tournament every weekend. I was like, man, I wouldn't do that with my kid. That's exhausting. So
did you play any other sports?
No, never did any sports. So that was just, martial arts.
Who is Matt Mullins?
So Matt Mullins is a great. I kind of look at him as a family member now, but Matt. So going back, I did a style called Shorin-ryu karate. It's a very just classic Japanese Okinawan martial art specifically. And it's very traditional. And in the tournament circuit, there was all these people doing the flips and the crazy like gymnastics kind of mixed together. It's almost like a dance is what it was back in the day. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And one of the top guys on the tournament circuit was this guy, Matt Mullins. He had this performance team called Sideswipe. And that was everything I wanted to do, man. That was just, they were like on stage doing these crazy flips. I mean, when I was so young that I used to think they were flipping 20 feet in the air, it was like that crazy. And my mom just approached him and said, hey, would you be willing to give Leo lessons? And I was 6 at that time. And you remember that old Billy Blank's Taibo studio?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first lesson with Matt when I was 6 years old.
What, at Billy's?
At Billy Blank's, yeah. It was the open
right
gym.
Out here in the valley.
Ventura, yeah,
on the
man.
second story of that little
I figured
corner?
you'd know exactly, yeah.
Well, I used to work out with Billy. I think I told you that when we were in, maybe I didn't.
I don't think so, yeah.
But right before, was it called, did you say Taibo? Is that what it was
Taibo.
called?
It was like that cardio, kickboxing kind of thing you did.
And his family had a brother named Michael and his wife. I've had classes, and they became very, very popular. And I had would do just classes with him, just me and him. Okay. And I'm not, I was never a martial artist. I would stretch, learn to kick, learn to throw punches, hit the bag, hit the pads, and that kind of stuff.
It's fun.
But and for me, getting my cardiovascular workout has always been very important to me. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot more fun than running. Yeah. It was a lot more fun than riding a stationary bicycle.
You're doing something.
Yeah. And you feel like, And so I worked out mostly with Billy. And then Billy's life just took off when they started selling videos.
He blew up. He was like the biggest thing, right?
He blew up. And from what I know about Billy, he left. He went to Hawaii. He was in Hawaii for 10 years. I actually saw him in our gym somewhat recently in the last 6 months or so. And I also worked out with a guy. His stage name is Keith Cook, but his name is Keith Hirshiabi. And Keith was like a weapons, that was his main thing. And he would come up and half the time he'd come up, I'd be hungover, but what? I did train and I did have a lot of fun with it. It's really fun, and I learned the kicks and things like that. But the idea of doing it at 4 or 5 or 6, and I wasn't doing anything until Little League Baseball, which comes around 8, I think, and I went to the Y and stuff like that. But so when I read, you were some sort of national champion a few years in a row. Tell me, what does that mean exactly, or is that? I mean,
this is no insult to the people that do that, but to me, that was I think there's this myth around martial arts. It's it's mystified, right? And someone who does martial arts, oh, they're a badass, man. They do martial arts, and the truth is, most of it's bullshit. Most of it is. There's some very real stuff. Most of it's bullshit. And the stuff I was doing, they're forms, right? So essentially, it's similar to a choreographed dance, right? And the idea of a form is people, what I heard growing up was we would take what a real fight looks like, and in order to practice that, because we're not going to practice a real fight, we're going to break it down into just techniques, and we're just going to do it by ourselves. It's almost like shadow boxing in old Japanese culture. So we would do these forms in competition, and you'd get rated by these judges sitting there, big old fat guys going, I didn't like that flip too much. It wasn't too good. His punch wasn't right. You know the deal. Armchair quarterbacks. I was, national champion for that circuit, right, when I was a kid. And, so that was kind of what that was.
Did you continue in martial arts, up until, obviously you've continued it because when I worked with you, I mean, so have you, just stayed with it? Was there ever any thoughts of you, especially with MMA blowing up? Was there ever any thoughts of you of like, and when you fight and when you spar and stuff like that, you wear headgear, you get bounced around. Have you been in fights? Have you been in real sort of MMA? Do you know, like karate's different than MMA, 'cause you go to the ground and all that kind of stuff, right? So tell me about it. You seem to me when I was over in Thailand, you seem to be kind of experienced in a lot more than you were when you were 5 or 6 or 7 doing those forms.
Right. So yes, to your point, it's a great question. And
Good.
Around
I got
14.
Another good one.
No, that just bought me about 5 seconds till I could formulate my thought. You motherfucker calling me out. So when I was like 14, I really thought I knew how to fight, man. And that was cool, right? I was like, I'd done martial arts. I'm a black belt, man. I know how to fight, right?
Right. You were a black belt
in Shorin-ryu karate.
In what?
Shorin-ryu karate.
Okay.
And I remember I was working with this stunt coordinator on a show called Kickin It. It was a sitcom that I did for Disney. And it was a martial arts show. And so, like, thank God I did all that stuff because it really prepared me for, like, the choreographed fighting. Because it's no different, like, the choreographed sort of routines that I would do. That's what a fight is on camera. It's just a choreographed dance, essentially. So all that practice was sort of building me up for, like, what I did in that movie. But I did that early on in my career as well. But I thought I knew how to fight. And I sparred with this stunt coordinator who kickboxed, still buddy of mine, Mitch. And I was like, oh my God, I know nothing. Like, I know nothing. And that was like a shock to me. And
How old were you?
I was probably 14, 13.
Okay.
And so I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is all the ground stuff you see in MMA. Yep. And I started Muay Thai as well.
Okay.
And I did Muay Thai for about 4 or 5 years.
In America?
In America, yep. And that was, I did Muay Thai for a couple years, and let's flash forward till I was like 17, and I was really into the kickboxing thing, really into it, right? And we'd, do fights in the gym, and I was training really hard. I was training with a bunch of fighters and stuff. And funny story, I came into contact with Frank Shamrock. His daughter was a fan of mine from a show I'd done years ago, and so came to the gym, and I got to hang with him. We trained a little bit, and he kind of pulls me aside, and he's like, hey man, he goes, what are you doing with this fight thing? And I was like, oh man, I like fighting. And he was like, fighting is for people who can't do anything else, Leo.
Right, yeah.
He's like, what are you doing? He's like, seriously, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you going to be a fighter? And I was like, nah, but ego kid. I was like, angry.
Yeah.
And it just kind of landed on me. And I was like, he is totally right. I love training this because I love it.
Yes.
Right. But this isn't what I'm going to do. I don't have that grit. The other thing is, like, I get in the ring, I get hit. It sucks, man. I don't enjoy it one bit. There's guys that get hit. That turns them on, man. They're there.
Right.
I'm not that guy.
Right.
I take it. I don't like getting hit. It's not fun.
Right.
So that kind of fizzled out my Muay Thai. And I just have been jiu-jitsu since then for the last 13 years. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is just something that I discovered that I'll always do for no other reason other than it's one of my great passions in life. I genuinely love it. And that's all the grappling stuff. So there's no striking. It's all submission stuff. It's, how to get to the ground. Once you're on the ground, how to control people, submit them, and all that good stuff. So, yeah, kind of a roundabout.
Okay. All right. Well, so when I saw you in Thailand, that was Thai fighting.
Muay Thai,
right?
yeah.
Muay Thai. Mm-hmm. So you had already trained in that type of fighting. Let me ask you a question about, did they just offer you that role?
Another banger question, Michael. No. Yes, they did.
They did.
They did,
yeah. Because of your
abilities.
I've done a lot of fighting, like you did on the show.
Off camera?
No, not off camera.
On camera.
No, only women.
Yeah. Lost those ones, huh? Most of the fighting in court,
women
though.
and children I'm pretty good with, but men, big guys, I'm like, no.
Yeah, beat the shit out of them kids, huh?
Now you threw me. Now I've forgotten what I was talking about. But
it was almost a great question.
Another great question. So when I saw you over there, Oh, no, I asked you. So they just offered it to you?
Yes. Yeah.
So you went over there. Did you have a week or 10 days or 3 days or 5 days to train with anybody in Thailand before we started shooting?
We had 2 weeks before to work on the choreography, and I think that's most likely why I was selected, is like they had done their research and they knew that I was capable of sort of carrying that action stuff as well as the role itself. So I think they knew that I could move like that. And then, the 2 weeks was just learning the fights and critiquing them, making sure they were right. And then we didn't do them for a couple weeks, and then just there we go. We're up on stage doing it.
Yeah, you guys. I thought your fighting sequences in that movie were really tremendous.
Thank
you.
Really,
really, really good.
Thank you. I was happy with them.
I can understand why, you look at the script and you go like, oh, I get to play like one of the leads in this, and also I get to, show off some of my training that I've been doing for, I didn't even know you were Muay Thai training for 4 years before that, but I was really impressed. And,
Thanks, man.
You don't seem like the kind of person who likes to sit around very much.
I know, because that's when the demons come up.
What?
Sitting around is when the demons come up, man.
When
we
the
got to stay
demons
busy.
come up.
Yeah, stay busy, distract.
I'm glad you got a few.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I noticed was, I go to my trailer in between shots and stuff, and every time I ever came out of the trailer, you were always fighting. You were always like either working with those. How good were those guys?
Great.
Fantastic
Great
team. Muay Thai fighters that were brought in.
Actually, most of the guys that I fought in Thailand, that's what you do. A lot of the time, you start as a kid training Muay Thai, and by the time you're 20 years old, you have 200 fights. We don't do that here in the U.S.
Right.
Like 200 fights is unbelievable, right?
Yes.
And that's just kind of common. So a couple of the guys were like, champions that had just retired at 25, and now they do stunts. So they were legit, man. I mean, in comparison to those guys, I kind of look like I know what I'm doing, but those guys do it. There's a difference between show fighting, right? Looking like you know what you're doing, and real fighting, man. Real fighting is not pretty. It doesn't look good on camera.
Right.
So there's a big difference.
Right.
Those guys were amazing. No, but you were saying just like doing stuff in between. I mean, part of that is
you seem to always be doing it. Like you just enjoyed it. Like you were still in a learning process with these guys. They were still showing you stuff. And, I just thought it was interesting because, me, at your age would have been like in my trailer, like smoking a little pot. Doing,
Yeah, but you know what? You and I talk about this. It's exactly the same as like developing a character that you're playing, right? For me, when I walk out to play a scene, it's got to be so in my head that I can forget it. And you know what I'm talking about. It's like, I sometimes work with people that are like, I like to memorize it kind of there, and I like to kind of find it. For me, that doesn't work at all. I have to own it. I have to own it in my bones so that when I get there, I'm not thinking, I'm just doing. So it's the same thing as playing a scene. Those fights, I wanted to get them so in my bones that I'm in it. I'm not thinking about what the next move is. And scenes are like that for me. If I'm on camera and I'm thinking about what the next moment is, I'm lost. For me at least.
Well, I understand that, and I talked before about the fact that when I was on the set, when I was your age, I would just walk around and it would play over and over and over and over in my head because I didn't want to be the guy who went like I forgot my line.
See, well, that's the fear that I was talking about early on. Fear of being that guy, that's what drives that as well. You know?
And what most people don't realize about movies is that there's a sound person, there's a focus puller, there's a DP. There are wardrobe people, there are makeup people, and any one of those elements can F up a shot.
That's right.
And so you've got, and I like, there's something about sports, and although you didn't, I grew up with, baseball, football, basketball. They're team sports, and there's something about a movie set that reminds me of like being on a team. Everybody's got a job to do, and when you say, I forgot my line, that's like getting caught
dropping
for
the
holding
ball
or something. You drop the ball,
you're dropping
exactly.
the ball.
Yeah,
I love that you look at it that way, because I look up to a lot of people, especially like really early on. Like the people that I really respected were the people that had that mentality, because you're right. Everyone's got families. This is a job. We care very much about it, but it's a job. We're trying to get home to go see our family and whatnot. And if I'm dropping the ball, by the time I get there, everyone else has done their part.
Yeah.
Now it's my time to do my part. And so I feel like I'm doing a disservice to them if I'm not on my stuff. It is disrespectful. It is, I'm sure you've been in that position where people don't know their stuff, and people don't take too kindly to that on set. It's not professional. It's not the way to go. And you don't last long.
I don't. We had a guy on our show that had a lot of trouble, and I just felt so bad for him, because
It's rough.
it wasn't like he didn't. He was thinking over and over and over those lines. It wasn't like he wasn't trying. It wasn't like he wasn't putting it.
It's that anxiety. It's a real thing. That's the nightmare that I've had reoccurring. I have friends that went to college. I didn't go to college, but wake up and you have you have a test tomorrow and you never studied, right? My version is I go to go to do the scene, or I'm on stage. Usually it's a play, and they've changed it and it's in a different language, and I don't know, right? Like that's my reoccurring nightmare.
If I've had that dream or a variation to that dream once, and I mean this, I've had it 1,000 times.
Yep.
1,000 times in one way, or I'm on a set, or I'm on stage, and I can't find the book. I haven't done
and they're like, Michael, hey, come on, let's go. And you're like, I got it. Just give me a second. Yeah. It's it's the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood things. I practiced them, and it don't look like I practiced them. That's what it is. So, but that's my worst nightmare, is like that.
Yes.
That. It's the anxiety. It's the fear that takes over, because like there's a healthy fear, but then when it gets out of control, you're there, and when that camera's going, it adds that extra bit of stress.
By the way, when you first started working, going way back when you were a kid, and you were doing things like a Conan, stuff like that, were they using film back then? Do you remember back in the?
I think Conan was shot on film. Maybe I don't recall actually.
Okay.
I was a little too young.
Yeah.
But that's another thing, is you can't waste that, right? I mean, that's a whole.
Well, there's a whole difference, Leo, between film and shooting digitally, because basically digitally they can just turn on the cameras and they can shoot the rehearsals, and they can just shoot all fucking day long. And it does. Film, on the other hand, you have a roll of film that's going to last for 7 minutes, and you shoot 2 minutes worth, and then
you know what? I think if they're saying check the gate, it's film, right?
Check the gate is film.
So yes, I've done a couple different projects with film, and I guess I just wasn't paying attention at the time. Yeah,
okay.
I would now, but probably not then.
So, I looked at your IMDb page, and I thought, okay, well, what am I going to look at first? And so I went and I watched Conan.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which, immediately Millennium pops up.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, Millennium. There. Every time I see that, that's like whatever. And now everything gets a score. Everything's always got a number next to it. And
gotta rate it. We gotta rate everything.
Yeah. And I was really fat. First of all, Arnold had done Conan the Barbarian right before we did the Terminator.
Okay.
Before we did the Terminator. And then we were going to shoot the Terminator, and his option got picked up. And so he went and shot Conan the Barbarian 2. Then I got to spend like 3 months with Jim Cameron, but John Milius was I don't know if you know John Milius, but John Milius created Conan, and John and I and Jim, we used to go out shooting, and John has since then had a stroke, but I I thought that, and once it transferred into, what's the name of the famous movie star now, Aquaman? Jason Momoa. Once it transferred into Jason Momoa, I knew you weren't going to be in it any longer. Mm-hmm. But that was a pretty good movie. I mean, as far as production value, as far as action, as far as, you were in it a lot, and it was the fight sequences. It was big. It was big. It was really big. And,
it was a cool. Really cool experience.
How old were you when you did?
I think I was like 10.
Okay.
And I remember it pretty vividly. There's a lot of these things that I did when I was a kid that I don't remember it a lot, and it's so upsetting to me because it was such a cool experience. I was in Bulgaria for, I think we were out there for like almost 2 months shooting that for Conan. That's where
they shot.
Right.
Okay.
In Bulgaria. And it was just cool. That was probably the first time that I think acting before that was a little bit attention-based. It was just like, oh, it's cool validation, right? I was a kid that I just really liked getting that validation from whoever I was doing it. Good job, right? And I hear that theme a lot with child actors, but at some point it has to shift into, in order to keep doing it, has to shift into, wow, I love this craft. I really love the art and the creativity. And Conan, for me, was like that because it was just a different world that I was stepping into, right? It was this fantasy world where there's these warriors, and it was like every kid's dream to play a warrior, and I'm fighting grown dudes with a sword, and, they'd tape the blood bags on them, and I'm screaming, hitting them. It was so cool, and that was when I really got bit by the bug of like, I like this. This is great.
Yes.
And another really pivotal moment in my life, because I worked with Ron Perlman, who
same movie,
a legend. Yeah, he played my dad in that, and he was great. I was a little scared of him, and I was like a sponge, just kind of like listening to him. And there was a great dinner I went to with my mom. It's just me and my mom, and it was Jason Momoa, it was Stephen Lang, and Ron Perlman, and they were just. Stephen Lang and Ron Perlman go way back in the New York scene,
theater,
way back in theater. Yeah, and so they were just talking about their life in the industry, and it was so cool to listen at that age to their stories. And Ron Perlman was talking about losing, A Few Good Men to Jack Nicholson, and just these movies that I was like, this is a massive movie, and to hear like they have the story that I have experienced, which is like I auditioned for that, and that other guy got it. That same guy keeps booking these shows over and over and over again. But Ron Perlman's got that guy.
The other Leo?
The other Leo.
Leonardo?
Yeah, exactly. I'm the other Leo, let's be honest. No, I'd be grateful to be the other Leo at this point. But like Ron Perlman's got that guy that books all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so it was just a kind of an eye-opening moment where I was like, oh, I'm doing it. I'm part of the club in a weird way. And so, that was a really cool experience.
Well, I've worked with both of those guys.
I figured you had.
Yeah. And I did a television series with Ron Perlman called The Magnificent Seven.
Okay.
And we had the producer of that television series on the podcast. And it was kind of great because I was the lead. I got first billing, but there were 7 of us. So it wasn't like Law and Order where I was in every, the lead of that, Maloney or something like that in every single shot. I was 3 days a week, 4 days a week,
schedule.
A half day here,
Love it.
A half day there. Well, I tell a story, and you might be able to relate to this at this point, and I might have.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, okay. Well, he knows. He's my son. So, other than my wife, she knows all my stories. But
it's no fun when people know your stories.
When I was a young man, I did a television series called The Runaways for Quinn Martin. Way, way before your time. You weren't even born. And and then I've done a few series along the way. I never got one that went 125 episodes and went into syndication, me making $10 million. But when I was young, I used to pick up a script and I would look at it and my character, I'm like, oh, I'm in this scene. Oh, here's another scene. oh, wow, I've got that scene there and I'm in that. Oh my God, this is fantastic. What a great episode, you know? cut to me 20 years later on the Magnificent Seven going, there's a day off. There's another day off.
I was at work this morning. I swear to God, I was at work this morning. And I said, in the makeup room, I was like, you know, early on, I used to go, man, I want to have those scenes, man. I want to be in the forefront. I want to have all the lines. Now, I want to stand in the back of the room. I don't want to say a word.
You get paid the same.
Same either way. I don't want to say anything. Just have me in and out. I said it this morning. You're so right. I agree with you. And yeah, that's a real thing. It's not to say you don't want those fun things you can sink your teeth into, but it's not, you know, it's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of work, you know?
Well, you worked with those two guys, and Stephen Lang and I go back, not real far, but he was on Tombstone, and he was one of us.
Yeah.
He played Ike Clanton.
Yeah.
For the amount of screen time he had, he effing killed it, man.
Yeah, that's
he
so
was
cool.
So
I agree.
I mean, everybody was good, but he was so effing good in that. So
I so admire that, though. The actors that just, you don't need a lot, and you just fill up those spaces. And I want to be able to do that, you know? And that's the journey for me, is like just being able to fill it up so rich that, you know, you have a couple minutes of screen time and people go, man, I like watching that guy.
You can look, just if you get a chance, if you ever see Tombstone again, or if you get a chance to, or you can just put in, I'm sure you can Google Tombstone and the character he played, and what's the character?
Ike.
Yeah, Ike Clanton. And just put in Ike, and you some of his scenes will come up, and you'll see he's big.
Yeah.
He's playing like big, like somebody might say, oh, that guy's overacting, you know. But I never liked the whole subtle, like that means something, like you know. I want to go, what? You know, nobody's ever accused me of being subtle, you know, on film. To me, it's much more fun and he was big in that show too. I mean, he was just loud and
he's got a presence, and he's absolutely got a presence. And that term overacting, it's an interesting term, right? It's like, I think overacting, like, to me, there's no such thing. It's like, it's just not believable. If it's big and it's believable, it works, right?
Yes.
I mean, it just works, right? So
it totally
it's more
worked.
about like the telling the truth or not. Like, if it's big and it's truthful, people buy it, right? But if it's not truthful, people label it as overacting. You know, I at least I've kind of noticed that.
And here's another thing too, Leo, that for me, I don't know why, but I never. And I mean, I can watch shows and go like, well, I didn't like that show very much. Oh, I didn't like this. I didn't like that. But I never, ever look at an actor or an actress and go like, they're fucking no, they're bad. I don't see it.
Yeah.
And for me, to get to a position to play roles like you play or play roles that like I play, you got to be pretty good. You can't be like, you know, stammering and not be very good. And I don't know why, but, you know, I just eat a TV show. I just never look at an actor and say like, oh, they're not doing a very good job.
Yeah.
And but going back to Stephen Lang.
Yes.
Stephen Lang, if I'm not mistaken, Stephen Lang was the one who was on Broadway. He was the one who was doing A Few Good Men. He was the one.
You might be right.
And maybe Perlman did it too.
Well, I mean, the story I remember that Perlman told was that when Perlman was on Broadway, he did something with the cigar. You know, that scene where Nicholson, I think he's smoking a cigar. I don't remember exactly what's going on in the scene, but they're like at a lunch table.
Okay.
And Ron was saying that Jack stole that from him on Broadway.
Oh, okay.
Who knows
Maybe
if that's
they both
true or not? I don't know, but But that was what he said. It made me laugh.
And I thought, and very easily they both could have. And I was under the impression that Stephen Lang had, and Stephen ended up doing Avatar.
Yes.
Okay. So I met with Jim I thought I was meeting him for Avatar. Originally, he told my agents he didn't think I was really right for it. And I said, well, let me see the script. And I read the script, and I'm like, Jim, what are you talking about? Like, it's fucking military. What are you? I'm perfect for this. Please, Jim. Yeah, it's me. So I went in and had another meeting with him, and I pitched.
Are you reading in these meetings, or are you just pitching?
No,
like, what's that?
No,
so you're just talking about
just
your
talking.
view on
and
this.
And with Jim, I read for him for the Terminator.
Right.
Okay, twice actually, and then
Did you have an audition prior to that, or you just went in? Your first meeting on that was to read for Jim.
My first meeting on Terminator was to read for Jim. I went in. And this is a story that's kind of out there, and I probably have already mentioned it on this too. But I went in. I was doing a mix and match on a play called Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Oh yeah,
and a director named Jose Quintero. Back in the day, was a well-known theater director, and I spent all morning doing these mixes and matches with different actors and actresses. Thinking that I was going to play Chip. I forget the character's name that Paul Newman played in the movie. I should know that. But so then I got in my car and I drove and I went and I read for Jim Cameron for the Terminator, and Gail Hurd. And when my agents called me, they said, "Hey, they really like you for this, but they don't like They call it the regional thing that's going on." I'm like, what are you talking about? The fact that you're Southern. And I'm like, to my agent, I said, like, I'm not Southern. I'm from Nebraska. What happened was some of that stuff that I was doing on Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, which I had the whole Southern accent for, just kind of followed me to the next thing,
right?
To the next audition. So then they asked me to come back and read it without the accent, and of course I just came back and read it as myself, and I got that role. And then on Aliens, of course, I replaced James Remar, who had a problem over there. Mm-hmm. And so I came into that. I got a call on a Thursday. I was on the set Monday morning. I didn't have any of the rehearsals, nothing, just boom, I was there.
Isn't that so cool about this industry?
Yes.
It's like you're putting a penny in a slot machine every day. And it's like you can't leave it because you get a call. Like, I mean, it's nowhere near the same thing at all. But like the lockdown movie that we did, it was like one day I was just nothing.
Yes.
And then the next day I'm going to Thailand in a week, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a surreal experience.
It's a great experience because you never know what's going to come around the corner.
And I try to remember that, the lows hit, right? You get those lows and you heard every actress say, I'm never going to work again. This is it. And I just don't let myself think that anymore, because I've thought that too many times, and I've managed to just keep something going. So now I go, you know what? As quick as it gets bad, it can get good again.
Exactly.
Just like life.
Exactly.
I mean,
it exactly did. And I haven't told you. Did I tell you what the new film that I got?
You did. Yeah.
Okay.
We were talking
So
the
I
gym.
can't.
We work out at the same gym.
They just announced somebody else, so I can't talk about that, or he'd have
exciting,
to drop it out.
But that's exactly what we were talking about, is how like all of a sudden nothing, and then boom, something.
And that's going to be a $50 million
so
movie.
Awesome,
that's like a big ass movie. I
love that.
And and it was the same with me on our show. Is Shannon McIntosh knew me from Grindhouse,
right?
And so when she was casting it, she called and said, "Would you be interested in doing this?" And I, through Jennifer, basically said, I'd like to work with you, Shannon. Shannon had already produced a lot of Quentin stuff, including The Grateful Eight and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and she goes way back with him. Of course, I wanted to work with her, but I couldn't do it because I had this job in Australia. So I went to Australia to do the job.
Yep.
And they had these torrential rains. It was like incredible rains. And that movie got pushed like 6 weeks. So I had a choice of staying there for 6 weeks in Australia, which is beautiful, by the way, and wonderful, or going back to LA. And I had my son with us, and it's a 20-hour flight. The whole thing is
brutal.
And Jennifer thought, well, let me call Shannon. Maybe that. So she called Shannon up. Shannon said, let me get back to you. And boom, I got that. And so that's what's kind of fun and exciting about our business is you never know.
Always changing.
You turn around and something's going to happen.
Yeah. I miss that. Like right now, I'm on a soap opera. I'm on Days of Our Lives.
Yes.
And I don't have that same buzz because this is, a soap is like the closest thing you can get to a 9 to 5 as an actor. Right? It's like, this is your job every day. You're coming in, your contract's this long. Obviously, your job's never stable completely, but this is what I'm doing for the next year, right?
Yes.
So, or until they decide they don't want you. But I don't have that same buzz that usually you experience, which is like, anything can happen any day.
Right.
Which is, it's so exciting.
Yeah. Well,
you got to be ready, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to be
hopefully
ready.
Jim Cameron doesn't see you in lockdown and say, I gotta have that kid for Avatar.
Oh man, dude, can
You're
you imagine?
Stuck,
It'll something like that'll happen, of course. Of course.
Yeah.
It's like they say, it's like you want to work, book a vacation, right?
Yes. Yeah.
A non-refundable vacation.
Right.
And you'll get hired.
So, you stayed. I went back and I looked at your stuff. Let me ask you about G.I. Joe. Okay. Where was that shot?
Here, L.A.
That was shot in L.A.
It was, yeah.
Okay.
Downey Studios and then Culver Studios.
Yes, yeah. Culver Studios.
Yeah, that
I
White
shot The
House.
Rock there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
a
cool
lot
place.
of studio stuff. Okay.
Yeah, so that was that was another. I think that one I shot that before Conan. So I had like these, kind of like the blockbuster action movies. I was kind of like the kid doing the fight scenes in these blockbusters, and that was a really cool.
Well,
little
you
lane to
played
have.
the younger Jason Momoa, and you played the younger
Snake Eyes. It was Ray Park.
Was it Ray Parks?
It was, yeah.
It was Ray Parks' character.
Ray
You were
Parks,
younger.
yeah.
Who's the star? Who's the star? The movie star? The big star?
It was Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum.
Dennis
I thought you were
Quaid.
Channing Tatum's son.
No, I was young Snake Eyes in that, which was Ray Parks. Is it Park or Parks? I should know this. But
I think it's Parks.
Parks?
With an S, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Parks. I should know
Don't
that.
thank me. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, with all due respect, Mr. Parker Parks.
Right.
That was a cool... That one was awesome because we had a lot of rehearsal for that. There was this big kitchen fight. And another really fun thing to do as a kid, just play, pretend, and fight. And... it was a really cool opportunity at that age, especially.
Do you think that...
It is Park, by the way, no S.
Park.
No S.
You had me second
No
guess
S?
No S.
myself.
Ray Park?
Ray Park.
Ray Park.
See, I was
Darth
right
Maul?
the first time. Yeah, Darth Maul.
Well, as much as I liked Conan, I had more trouble with that movie because...
With which one? Conan or G.I. Joe, you're saying?
G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe is just like...
That's not my type of movie,
It's
personally.
It's 80% action sequences, 85% action sequences.
Yeah.
And, when they get in those suits and they're starting flying around and stuff
But
like
that's, I don't think you and I are the demographic for that. I mean, I think on paper, G.I. Joe blew Conan out of the water. You know what I mean? In terms of how it did. There's a market for that, right?
It was $195 million movie to make.
Unbelievable.
$195 to make.
And I made $50, so 50 of that was to me, baby. Don't forget it.
Yeah. It was $195 million, and then it ended up, I think kind of underperforming in the United States, but worldwide made $300 million. That movie that you were in made $300 million worldwide. And now,
again, I got 50 of that.
Yeah. Well, we all,
it's when you put it that way, it's really cool. And I mean, you have that resume of like just the amount of money that you've been around and the projects that you've been in. It's mind blowing, isn't it? Like just the money that's been invested in the projects that you've been in.
Well,
it's unbelievable.
Here's the thing about my career. Okay, Terminator was made for. And we're talking about a movie. We're talking about the G.I. Joe movie. The budget on it was $190 million.
Yeah.
The one that I'm going to do is probably somewhere between $75 and $100 million.
Hard to fathom.
Okay. Terminator, $6.5 million. Now, was this years ago? Yes.
Probably the equivalent of a $15 million, $20 million movie now, right?
Yeah.
In terms of
maybe. 15, okay? $6 million. Aliens, okay, with all of that fire and shooting at Pinewood, $19 million budget. $19 million. The Abyss, I'm not sure what the budget was on that, but Jim Cameron has a way of putting everything
stretching
on the
those dollars out, man.
Everything on the screen.
So
and
cool.
I got paid $100 for the term. I was a working actor at that time, and so I got paid $100 for the Terminator. I had to take Remar's deal. They said, like, if you want to come over here and do this,
step into
you take his billing, you take his deal, you take his accommodations, and other than the accommodations, so I got paid $100,000 for that, and I probably got like maybe $200 for The Abyss. And that was the third movie I had done for Jim.
Yeah, The Abyss was $69.5 million budget. 69.5.
59.
69.
69 for The Abyss.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you think about that movie, also Leo, there was nobody knew anything about CGI. There was no CGI.
Ground level of that side of the industry.
That water tentacle I don't know if you've seen the movie, but that water tentacle in the abyss that goes through the ship and does all that kind of stuff, then when she's looking at it, it makes her face. That was all CGI, and that's like the very first time that I was aware of what, CGI, I started hearing about it. And then I look at a movie like the one that we were just talking about, G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
It's just slammed with CGI, and so. I
just can't imagine how overwhelming, directing a movie like that. I watched one scene where there was the pyrotech, they're shooting paintballs that were these charges, right? And they're all over. And it was just one, you know how it is. We spend all day on a shot that's 1 second in the movie. It's 1 second, right?
Yes.
And just it's so much to wrap your head around this CGI. It's like, why? One of the reasons I have so much respect for people like James Cameron, right? Like what he started with, and just the vision that you have to have. When you show up that day, you have to know in your head what it's going to look like and be able to instruct hundreds of people in how to make that vision come to life. And if you've played the game Telephone, you know what I mean? Like you communicate to one person, it doesn't go well. So that just, it's remarkable. I mean, there's some talented people in this industry, man.
Didn't you direct one of your episodes?
I did.
Which show was it?
So I've directed 3 episodes. I did 1 episode of a show, the Kickin It, the one that I was on, and then 2 episodes of a show that I was not on called Gamer's Guide. And all Disney sitcoms, so very different. It's a different, it's multicam. It's a totally different style of directing.
It doesn't have an audience, though, right?
It classically has an audience, but the shows that I did not have an audience.
Okay.
Disney, these shows, like, sort of around the time that I was on Disney, they sort of discovered that kids like gags, right? They like these sort of, stunts or, a little explosion happens on stage. And so these shows got a little too big to do
in front of an audience.
In front of an audience.
Yeah,
so they kind of became this like hybrid, like you do multicam and then you'd pop, go on a handheld for some of the other stuff. So it was an interesting kind of hybrid between multicam and
How did you get
single
like
cam.
your the first directing gig? I know guys who have been on series for a long time. So I want to direct one. I want to direct one, and they never get a chance. Well, how come?
I think I
martial arts world champion at 4.
Yeah, they were like, this
directing
kid's
movies, directing his own content at 14. Or
I look back and I go, what were they thinking having me in charge? Yeah, they were all drunk, I guess. But me directing on that show started maybe 2 years before I actually got the opportunity. I was really interested in just how the cookie was made.
This is Kickin It?
Kickin It, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was 13
Were you
when I
first
started
billed in that show?
I don't even remember.
Okay.
I was one of the mains. It's an ensemble cast, right?
Were other martial artists on that show?
None of them were actually martial artists. I was the only one that had done stuff previously. So I started the show when I was 13 and it finished when I was 17. But I was always really interested in how the cookie was made. Just from an early age, I loved asking questions. I was probably annoying to a lot of the people I was working with, but I was just fascinated with just how it all gets done, And so 2 years before I actually got that opportunity, I would sit in the writer's room, and I would bug the producers till they let me sit in the writer's room. And at first they were like,
really?
Who is this kid? Right?
Wow.
But I just wanted to see it.
How old were you?
I was 14, 15 when I started shadowing.
Okay.
So I would spend time in there. I'd go into the editing bay and I'd hang with the editor. I would ask directors to shadow them, and all for the I think what initially spurred it was obviously the interest in this, but also, you never know when your job's going to end as an actor. And I kind of knew that. My parents had always said, look, this is an unstable industry. You never know what's going to happen. So I always have been of the belief to expand my knowledge. A wise guy told me once, have a path in mind, but never be afraid to look to your right and your left. There's opportunities around you. So I always took that to heart. And I just wanted to learn all of it. And the producers saw me doing that. And I had expressed to them that I really wanted to direct. And they said, well, look, if you want to direct, you're just going to have to keep putting your time in. I'm not saying it's going to happen here, but maybe down the road we can hire you on. And eventually, I don't know how it got approved, but they agreed to let me direct an episode, which was very surreal for me. And it was cool because it was a show I was familiar with, but it was also...
You're 15 years old?
I was 16 when I directed.
16 years old, wow.
And I got a Guinness record for the youngest director of a television show. Yeah.
Wow.
And really cool, very weird to be a kid on this show, and then all of a sudden I'm directing some of the people I've worked with since I was 13, who's this kid telling me what to do? And so there was a lot of politics to navigate, and... it's that right balance of expressing what I want, but also not stepping on the toes of the other artists around me.
I understand, and other people that have seen you in a certain role. When you're directing a television show, it seems to me that, especially if you're in your third season or fourth season or something like that, everybody kind of knows what to do. Yeah. The DP kind of lights the way he always lights. The sound guys know where
Especially on sitcoms, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room. So the sort of additions that I had, obviously you create all the blocking.
This is what I wanted to ask you. What does a director do on a show like that?
Yeah.
That is not already kind
done.
Of figured. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the times on sitcoms, the job can get done if no one does it.
Yes. And I've said this before, a movie can get made without a director.
It can. Yes. Enough people involved that, people kind of take up the slack.
Yeah.
So I knew that, and I made the goal of I want to be able to walk onto another set of a show that I don't know that's newly established, and I want to be able to do the job. And so things like, sure, I didn't have to shot list. I could have said we have it's an AD, but not a assistant director. It'd be an associate director. That's who does the shots and manages the camera operators on a multicam. And they can do the shots or the director. Classically, it was the director doing it, but nowadays, a lot of times they do it. And I told him, I was like, I want to do this because I want to learn this. And he was like, great, go ahead, do it. So I shot listed the whole episode, right? I developed all the blocking, the shot list, shooting the fights. We would get, because it was a martial arts show, every episode there was a fight. Yep. So, getting in, there's a little bit of a thumbprint that you can put on stuff like that. Also, because there's all these gags and stuff, it's how do we shoot this this gag? How do we, a guy's gonna, one of the first episode directed actually was kind of a night at the museum type episode where these samurai, statues in a museum come to life.
Okay.
And so, you can imagine the little gags. How are you going to play, in the script, it's the samurai moves and he notices it. But like, how can we play that in an interesting way? Like, how can we show that's a little different than the norm? So you're absolutely right. The job can get done if no one's doing it. But there's a fingerprint to be put on it if you're willing to do that. And so I really wanted to put my fingerprint on it. So because I did that, the producers went off and did another show after. I got to do another 2 episodes on that other show.
Well, let me ask you this. I remember, when I took our job, the lockdown job, I thought the script could use a little bit of work. And I told Shannon that, and she said, "Oh yeah, we're very, and I found them, once I'd signed on and said, well, what about this? What about that? We could do this, we could do that to make it better. It just kind of went nowhere, it didn't go anywhere. And and certainly not because of Shannon or our director. I think our director might have been a little bit, Ryan might have been a little bit, I think he had his hands locked a little bit on that show. Okay, I don't think he could make kind of changes that I was looking for. Some of it had to do with I kind of felt like they just kept saying it over and over and over. They just kept saying the same things over and over again. But my point to you is I wanted to ask you a question. I remember because at one point, I said to myself, okay, well, they're not going to listen to me. I'm just going to protect myself. I'll say what I'm going to say. Sure. They're not going to tell me I can't say what I want to say. I'll say what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
I remember very rarely, the script that I read is the script that you and what's the girl's name?
Katie Lotz.
That Katie did, and very rarely did I see any of that dialogue change. That dialogue, I think you guys had worked on it before, maybe a little bit. But I remember there was one point that you said we were getting ready to shoot the scene, and yet at one point you said to the director, your line was, "Are you really a prisoner here?" Do you remember that line?
I do remember that line.
And, here I am in fucking Taiwan.
I'm locked in prison with you.
Locked in prison.
And I'm like, are you even a prisoner?
and you questioned it. You said what's
going on here?
I remember you saying,
is he an idiot? Like, does he not know if he's in prison?
But I'm not sure, and I don't want to. But when you're directing something, or when you're acting in something, or when you're acting on a show like this show or the other show? See, I didn't even realize the other show that I was looking at was the show about the zombies. 21 episodes of.
Freakish. What? The Hulu show Freakish.
Yeah. Freakish. Yeah. When you're doing those shows, do you ever get a script and look at it and go, we've said this once or twice. Do we have to say it a third time? And by the way, Freakish, those are short episodes, man.
Yeah,
and they had commercials, correct? They looked like they had.
I think Hulu always had commercials. I think they still did, but yeah, it was like a half-hour show.
Okay,
we shot it in 4 days an episode. 4 days an episode. It was a wild shoot schedule. To what you're saying.
Okay.
Early on, no, I didn't. And that's been something I've been a little self-conscious about. And I've always had, I think talking to a bunch of actors, always had a bit of imposter syndrome, feeling like, I'm not doing the homework that I should do on these things. And a lot of it early on was just, I'm an employee. I'm here to show up. I'm here to say the words that are on the page. I'm not here to question it. I'm just here to earn that paycheck and do a good job and go home, right? That was just my mentality. And I think that was a very sort of military mentality, a very maybe from the martial arts thing. And only recently in the last couple years have I sort of like started to redefine what the job is for myself.
Okay.
And this is where like meeting you was such a great, like it was kind of a start of a new chapter for me, because like watching you work, I was able to like soak it in a different way and really start to look at it and go like, do I really understand and know what I'm saying? Because I spent a lot of years probably not really knowing exactly what I'm saying and what it means to me. Do you know what I'm saying by that?
Yes.
Like what's on the page. And
Yes.
so I've started over the last couple years to really sit more in that place, which is, what's going on here? What's being said? What does this mean about this person? How is the audience perceiving this? But how am I feeling about this? Just asking all those questions. And so when you start to ask those questions, as you know, a lot of times you start pulling that thread, and sometimes the whole thing can unravel. And I think that's what happens in some aspects with our film. You know, it started out as a martial arts movie.
Yes.
Right? It's
yes.
a kung fu, like a throwback to the 90s
exactly,
kung fu.
Yeah.
But I think that you, me, and Katie, like, we wanted it to be more than that. Like,
Yes.
there was, I think, more than just a martial arts storyline. Like, it was based on a family. And, like, we really wanted to, or I'll speak for myself, it's like, I really wanted to milk the story out of it, you know? And maybe that wasn't the I don't know about the correct, but maybe that wasn't the best choice for the film, because maybe it should have just been a martial arts movie. But I always think nowadays it's better to sort of shoot for the story than just, like you said, just some kind of average action movie, you know? So, and all of your additions, I'm kind of rambling, I know, but your additions that you were pitching, I agreed with the stuff that you and I talked about. It just ended up being, once you pull that string, the whole thing starts to unravel in the script. Does that make sense? Like, it was kind of fundamentally with the storyline, we were locked into what it was.
Well, we were, and the whole idea of like me bringing you guys into prison to do the whole fight sequence. Okay, that all sounds really silly, right? But so did a Terminator coming from the future.
Under siege, you know?
So no sillier than that original idea, you know?
Yeah.
So, my feeling always is like, you just want to, what happens, sometimes you'll see, and sometimes writers don't have time. If they're doing episodic television, they're just like the rest of us. It's just hurry up, get us something, right?
Yeah.
And so you'll get exposition. You'll get something that needs to be said in the first 15 minutes, right? But then they'll say it again 20 minutes later.
It's almost like talking down to the audience a little bit.
Yeah. That's what I say. That's what I'm always saying. Is,
yeah.
Who's watching this?
Yeah.
If they didn't hear it the first time, they're not paying attention. Why do we have to? First of all, we want the least amount of exposition possible. Mm-hmm. But once we say it once, do we have to say it a second time? And then sometimes a third time that if you don't win this fight, you're not going to get out of jail.
Yeah, we get it, right? I mean, dude, what I'm doing now, this soap, I mean, it's exposition city, right? That's most of the scenes that I'm doing. I have to walk the audience through what happened in the last 3 episodes, because soaps are designed to, I should be able to just jump into an episode and kind of understand what's happening with every character. And so in order for that to happen, there's got to be a ton of exposition. And so it's just necessary in this. And it's very difficult as an actor because we don't speak like that.
Right.
I'm not going to say like, oh, yeah, you remember when I saw you at the gym the other day and we talked about X, Y, and Z? That was great. And, you remember when I grabbed...
Yeah, of course I remembered. I was there.
Yeah, so, we don't talk like that. And
but
so...
the audience needs... Yeah,
But it's very difficult as an actor to do that because it's not what we do.
Yes.
We don't talk like that.
Right.
You'd be like, shut up, dude. What do you... Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. Well, I heard Matt Damon talking about Jack Nicholson and how Nicholson said he was a great writer. And he kind of got it because, and he goes into this whole story, and it's a fun story. You can find it on YouTube or whatever. But, little, and I did this a lot on the I've done it a lot my entire career, is I have looked at stuff and said, like, this is going to be hard coming out of my mouth, okay? And instead, Leo, of saying, fix this. This is, and not on the show that you're working on now. That's kind of a different situation, but like a film, another television series, something like that. It's like, I'm going to have a hard time saying this, all right? Instead of doing that, I would say, I'm going to have a hard time with, I think this is what you're trying to say. What if we said it like this? Mm-hmm. So we're getting what you want, but it's kind of coming through my mouth, not, you know. And that's the way to, I'm not giving you advice. You're a professional, like whatever actor, but that's the way that I've always approached it. And you'll find people like Jim Cameron, people like Robert Rodriguez, the people that are the most confident will go, oh, okay, well, that's a good idea. We'll do it that way. And the people that are the least confident will say, no, just leave it how it is.
Right.
Just leave it how it is. You know.
It brings up like sort of, it's a thought that I've had, and I'm curious to hear your opinion on that. But I think, in my experience, a lot of that comes from a lack of trust in the actor. Meaning, in order to trust that this is going to come across, like if I'm a writer and I'm putting it on the page, I'm going to hand it to you so you say it. So there's no way around it. As actors, I think it's always my first instinct to go, say less. I don't need to say as much, right?
I agree.
And I can play that in this look. But I think there's a lot of trust in that. Like, writers would have to trust the actor, and that's not, I don't think it's super common. On at least a lot of the things that I'm doing, there's not a lot of faith in just that the actors can deliver that, whatever that thing is. So it's just safer to have them say it. But I have that experience that you just talked about where I go, this is going to be very difficult to say. These words just I don't know how I'm ever going to feel like these are my words. And I get torn there, and I'm curious to hear your thought. I would not say those words like that, but this isn't me, right? I'm trying to find, I mean, it is me. I'm trying to, that's the other thing. It is me.
There's good writing, Leo, and there's...
You're right.
You know, but go ahead.
It's the, the Meisner thing is this is me under these circumstances, or me, it's me. Yeah. But does it leave space for someone else's words? Like, maybe my instinct is not the right instinct. Like, I guess my question is, how do you decipher, like, words that would be unnatural coming out of your mouth and words that are unnatural coming out of this person's mouth that you're playing? Do you know what I'm saying by that?
Well, that's one issue that we're talking about here, which is words not being, like words, like, I know what you want to say, but they're kind of jumbled here. Let them say it my way. Usually I can get away with that. But, I can remember on the Magnificent Seven, I had John Watson, who was my showrunner on that, and he would always listen to me. And if I made sense, he would go back to the writers and say, change this. And there was another character on the show, and for some reason in one episode, he predicted that it was going to be raining a week from that day, or 10 days from that day. And I went to John, like, it's the 1880s. What the fuck are we doing here? What do you mean it's going to be raining?
Yeah.
Yes.
Smells like rain.
Pretty much.
About 8 days away.
Pretty much, and, some things just logically, they just don't make sense.
That's
There's just no
story.
Logic to them. I've had,
Are You a Prisoner here is a great example, right? Yeah.
that was an example of one that.
Well, and I think I know.
I saw you questioning it on the. I was in my back of my mind, because listen, I'm not. You were a professional. You had done work. I'm not going to tell you. You're doing your own. You're not asking me for any advice or whatever. I'm not going to give it to you. But underneath, I was like, you get that line.
But you know what I should have said? Because I think I know what that line was trying to say. The line was, are you even a prisoner here? And what it was trying to say is, like, are you involved in this thing?
Yeah, of course it was.
But to your point earlier, that could have been said in a clearer way.
In just the shortest manner.
Yes.
And I think you think about it for 5 minutes and you'll come up with a line that is exactly what they want to say, but can't come across like, gee, what are you?
Yeah.
Are you a prisoner?
Yeah, you're dead on.
Yeah.
You know, this show that I'm on now, I will say it's different from classically television. The words are gold, right? Like you can't mess with anything, right? It needs to go through seven layers of. You're the beanster, man. You do whatever you want. Old me over
really,
here. But just television, they're a lot more strict about the words because it's gone through network approval, right? We need to say these words. On this show, it's so fast. We shoot 180 pages a day. Right?
I have trouble memorizing 3.
I was in the car here. I have 40 pages tomorrow, and I was just like, and you know what's
funny? We'll get you out of here in 5 minutes.
I'm not nervous. I'm fine, man. All good. It goes quick, but they're quick in writing it, and there is this kind of like actor-writer relationship where at this point, I'm about a year into this, they give me a paragraph and they know I'm going to sort of rework it into saying exactly the same thing.
Okay.
But just in my words. And I think it's a great exercise for me because I go, how can I streamline this, right?
Yes.
And obviously I'm not trying to change their words.
Yes.
But a lot of times if I'm memorizing quickly, I've got to memorize what I'm saying. Not exactly the words, but what am I actually trying to convey here? And so they're really great about just letting us do that as long as it makes sense for the scene.
Right.
And I look at this as practice, man.
What is now? Fucking famous young martial artist, actor. I'll go out and act for a while. Actor, no problem. Are you also a musician?
Yeah, man. I mean.
What don't you do, bro? What don't you do?
Jack of all trades, master of none, man.
What I heard that you have a little group.
Well, so I've been in a bunch of bands over the years, and that's just
are you a guitar player?
Guitar player.
You play guitar?
Yeah.
Lead guitar or
whatever, man. Blues is like my favorite thing to play. I've always really been into just blues. That's like that's just something I do, sort of like jiu-jitsu. I'll always do it. It's just for me. I love it. I've been in a bunch of different, bands over the years, and a lot of these guys, there's a couple guys on this soap that they play in a band called the Day Players. It's called Days of Our Lives, the Day Players. It's just a great little pun. I love it.
Yeah.
And they go all around the country and they sell tickets for, people that want to come, it's essentially like a meet and greet, but it's a concert. And they asked me if I wanted to jump in for a show. And I was like, absolutely. I love playing music, man. It's just fun to get out and play. Ultimately, I just like being creative, whatever that is for me. Like jiu-jitsu for me is very creative.
Yes.
I love painting. I love acting. I love music. It's just, I like being creative. There's no like one thing that's like the thing for me.
Would you, I wanted to ask you this, out of all the styles of in martial arts, if you had to pick a style for a young person to learn that was so they could just defend themselves.
Oh yeah.
Is there any style that you would pick over other styles?
There's no, one ring to rule them all. I don't believe there's like one style that will conquer all of it, but if I was going to recommend something to somebody, I would recommend Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I would recommend a school that also teaches wrestling.
Okay.
Because jiu-jitsu is all on the ground, but you got to get to the ground. You got to be in control. That's the goal. And wrestling is wrestling's phenomenal.
Yes.
So I would just say,
wrestling.
Yeah, wrestling's unbelievable, man. Olympic wrestlers, I think, are the top of athletes in the world. Yeah. I mean, just what it takes in terms of the stamina, the strength, the explosiveness, the speed, the flexibility. It's remarkable. And I grapple, but hard wrestling, it's harder than all of it, man.
Yeah.
It's brutal. So I would say, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with wrestling.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me make sure that I've gotten through everything here. I have a little list that I bring out.
Which you don't want to miss anything here.
Kicking It, freakish.
By the way, man, I have to say, I'm very honored to be here. Like just from working with you, like you are a legend, man. And it was such a pleasure working with you, and to be here just talking to you. It's cool, man. So thank you for having me on. It really, it's cool for me.
Oh, sure. What would you? I want to ask you when you're doing martial arts, throughout your entire time doing martial arts, is there a time when they said to you, was there ever a time where it was like, don't lift weights, that's not good for you? Or have you been lifting weights? And at what age do you think a young person benefits from lifting weights, where you break down the muscle?
Yeah.
Because I have a 9-year-old son.
Yeah.
And he likes to go to the gym with me, and he wants to get big arms.
Yeah.
So I do curls with, I do a bunch of curls with him, and I get him, so he's trying really hard.
Yeah.
And if it had been me, the next day my bicep would be sore from lifting weights, and his aren't.
It's fascinating.
Do you have any idea at what age that kind of happens, where your muscles actually break down and build back up?
Listen, I'm not a doctor, right? So,
you're not a doctor
Leo
too?
Here.
I thought you might have.
Imagine?
I thought it might have been like singer, actor.
Well, I know. So my parents were really into fitness.
Okay.
Right? I grew up in the back of a Max Muscle store. My parents owned Max Muscle stores, right? Which were like a nutrition, supplements. And my dad ran gyms for years. So I grew up in that industry. Like my dad emceed bodybuilding shows. So I grew up around bodybuilders.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's just wild childhood. Very interesting.
Yeah.
But my dad always said, like, I always really wanted to train at an early age. And my dad was pretty adamant that there's certain exercises that I shouldn't do that put pressure on my spine or things like that. He said something about like the growth plates. I don't know anything about that, but that's what he said. Growth plates, like being, listen, I'm not even going to get into it because I know nothing about it.
Maybe you could ask your dad about it next time I see you.
Yeah, maybe. But he basically, like 14 was around the time that I started pretty much doing everything out there, but he wouldn't let me squat, wouldn't even let me like bench press, just dumbbell stuff.
At 14,
prior to
no
14.
bench press.
Yeah, prior to 14, I was just kind of like, throwing the weights around, like that curls and, stuff like that.
Okay.
So
yeah,
that. But I think calisthenics, man, like HIIT workouts and body weight stuff, you can get a phenomenal workout from that. It's just takes a little more motivation.
Do what?
Like HIIT workouts, high intensity interval training. You just like timed.
Explain that. What would that look like?
Actually, there's a great woman on YouTube. Her name is Caroline Gervin.
Okay.
I did her workouts for like 2 years. Actually, in that movie in Thailand, her workouts are the only things that I did for like. I mean, I only found out about that movie like 2 weeks before, but I'd done that for like a year previously.
Okay.
Didn't even have a gym membership. And a lot of it is just dumbbells and then body weight work. And so you'll have either a 30-minute or a 45-minute workout, 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. When you say
dumbbells, what's the difference between dumbbells and body weight workout?
Dumbbells are,
dumbbells.
And then body weight is just no dumbbells or anything. I'm doing a push-up into like a jump squat or something like that.
Okay,
it's just,
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So is that a combination building your muscles and cardiovascular?
Yeah. I'd say HIIT workout is kind of the balance between the two.
What's her name?
Caroline Gervin, man. She's an animal. She's unbelievable.
How does she spell her last name? Do you know?
Girvan. She's Northern Irish.
Okay.
She's beautiful. She's in shape, and she will out-push up any man out there. It's unbelievable.
Really?
She's like 5'2". I've tried to keep up with her. It's to the point that like I'll be working out, and when she takes a break, I'm like, yeah, that's right. You take a break. I'm not taking a break, Fuck you. So anyway, but yeah, so.
All right. Well, I'm gonna. It's usually about the time that we go, and I know that you're busy. I know that you've got
60 pages to learn.
You've got 40 pages of dialogue to learn this afternoon and this evening. So I don't want to keep you that, but I can't thank you for coming and talking to me. And I'll tell you something, Leo, that always made me feel comfortable around you, and that was, in the day, how we live, and like certain things you can say, and certain people you call certain names, and like I'm old, I don't know things, but I don't want to get into trouble. I don't want to get like, I can't work anymore, but you were the first person that went,
yeah.
And I went, oh, you say it? Oh, that means I can say So you're
well,
no, and believe me,
no, I'm just kidding. No, I got you.
It was all, you
got to ride the line. You got to ride the line, man.
Yeah. But you made me feel a little bit more like my old self, where I could even think certain things and not be worried about it. But you're kind of you're not frightened. You're not frightened, and I appreciated that because I was able to kind of loosen up a little bit. And
Thanks, man.
Yeah, and I enjoyed working with you. And every time I see you, now you've joined the gym that I'm at.
Now we see each other all the time.
Yeah, I tell
you're in the zone, man. When you're working out, you're in the zone. Like I can wave at him. He won't even see me. It's just like, fuck it, just you're locked in, man. When you're there, you're just locked. I gotta like walk up on you and be like, hey, hey.
You know what I'm locked in? I'm locked in. I hate this.
Well, we talked about the last time. It's like I hate every moment of it, every time, but I have to do it forever.
Right.
You and I said that.
I think that I'll work out until the day that I can't work out anymore.
Right.
And do you feel the same way?
Absolutely.
And do you feel when you don't work out, do you feel guilty?
100%. I feel just like a horrible waste of space in this world, and that's not healthy. It's terrible.
How often do you work out?
I try to do something every day, whether it's jujitsu or exercise. Wow. I try to get like 5-6 days in of something.
You do.
Sometimes it
And
doesn't happen.
you're working a 10-hour day?
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't happen at work.
Yeah.
But I got a little Apple Watch, man. I'll go walk around. Just stay active. I always feel so much better, like even my mental health, man.
Yes, of course.
When I get that heart rate up, it just turns the volume down on those demons,
Yes.
we talk about. So it's just a way for me to stay sane, honestly.
Yes. Me too.
Yeah.
Well,
and I love people watching.
I haven't gotten completely sane.
Yeah,
but
me neither. I'll figure it out.
Halfway.
When you figure it out, you let me know.
All right.
Dude, thank you.
Thank you, man.
How would you look upon someone dirtier than you? Are you immune?